Hi, everybody. Welcome to Progressive HR Talks Live. I am here on this beautiful Thursday. Nope, it's not Thursday. I have a special episode. It's actually Wednesday. So I'm here on this wonderful Wednesday morning with Jay Abbasi, and we're going to be talking about mindfulness. So where are you coming from? Drop some comments in. Oh, I'm getting so mixed up here. I was just telling Jay is that, I tell everybody that I'm not perfect, and that's just kind of the way that I like to have it. So, so as we're waiting for everyone to join the live stream, I will start again. Welcome to Progressive HR Talks Live, where we're all unique, resourceful humans. And as resourceful humans, we thrive on continuous learning. My name is Corrine Woodman-Hollebeck, and I'm an HR executive. And I like to guide conversations on the future of work through social media and blogging. I started Progressive HR because I had a thirst for knowledge and on topics that were outside my profession. I wanted to bring those topics into my profession and into my practice. And so, because my belief is that everything relates to HR. We're all human. We're all resourceful. We all have limitless potential. So I'm going to take a look and see, who's tuning in right now. Anyone who's tuning in, go ahead and throw in the comments where you're joining from and who you are and say hi. So I'm just going to quick refresh my browser here and see that we're live. Awesome. So there we are live. Awesome. So I would like to introduce you to Jay Abbasi, as founder of Jay Abbasi Consulting. We're going to be talking about mindfulness today as it relates to the future of work, how we can evolve work, and the practice of mindfulness. So where it puts us in a place where we can close the skill gaps before 2030. Both Jay and I believe in the limitless potential of human capability. Welcome, Jay. Thanks for coming on Progressive HR Talks Live with me.
Thank you so much, Corrine. I really appreciate it. What a great introduction. I couldn't agree more with how HR impacts all of us, right? We are all human, and therefore we should continue learning and continue growing. And I think this is a great platform to bring people together. So honored to be on with you.
Thanks, Jay. We're going to start off our conversation. But before we do, I want to kind of get everybody a little bit flexed this morning to involve themselves and engage in our discussion. And we're going to start with our first question, which, what is your favorite superfood? Because I saw on your LinkedIn, you don't like avocados.
That is correct. It would be the opposite of my superfood. It's my villain. And it's not, there's nothing against avocado. There's so much good nutritional value. I just can't stand the texture of it. It rubs me the wrong way. But my favorites, when you say superfood, do you mean like to get me going, to give me energy, that type of food, or the one that I go to when I want to splurge and have a little bit of fun? Which one are you talking?
I don't know. Aren't they the both?
It's a different type of energy, right? I guess, for me, every day I have, and this is really boring, but I have oatmeal. And what I love about oatmeal is, I slice up bananas, I put bananas in there, I put berries in there, and it does really, I think it provides good energy for me. It's very filling, and I have it every single day. It's a consistent thing. I have oatmeal every single day. But on the other side, what I enjoy is I am a sucker for a good chocolate chip cookie. Like a really warm, fresh chocolate chip cookie will win me over anytime.
Listeners, audience, go ahead and throw in the comments, what is your favorite superfood? And it can be something that is, as Jay said, what gives you power in the morning, or you can be like what, quote unquote, we consider to be superfoods. So mine is acai.
Okay.
So I love acai bowls, and my friend Katerina, my best friend Katerina, she turned me on to them when I was living in England, and she came back from South America on her trip abroad, and she brought back I'm not going to even say it right. Guaranana. Anyway, it's a nut that you grind down, and it gives you energy. And she would mix it with bananas and acai. And it was like a big old caffeine jolt
Uh-huh.
in the morning. So I got very into acai and different fruits. So now I have like acai bowls, and I have my kids. They got my kids accustomed to it too, and I called it purple ice cream.
Nice. Well, I've
So
had acai bowls are fantastic. I haven't had enough of them, but also very filling, right?
they are, and you can put chocolate in them because chocolate's also another superfood.
Right. Yeah, you can get creative.
Very creative.
Yeah.
So anyone who's joining now, please go ahead and put in the comments where you're coming from, any questions that you have for Jay, and then also answering like, what is your favorite superfood? I am going to refresh my computer over on the other side here really quickly.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So, someone is coming in. Hi, Holly. How are you doing? Oh my goodness, Holly. Chia seeds.
Yes. Holly, I've actually recently got into chia pudding, making my own chia pudding. I use it with almond milk, vanilla extract, and I use agave to make chia pudding with chia seeds, 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, and it's fantastic. And I do think, the reason I went started having chia seeds was for the same reason, as energy as a superfood. So that's a great one.
Yeah, and she also says that she understands your dislike of avocado.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I used to make this joke. I'd be like, is avocado a solid or a liquid? I don't think avocado knows what avocado is, because when you order avocado at a restaurant, you don't know what you're going to get. Is it going to be slimy? Is it going to be a solid? It's too uncertain. There's too much uncertainty with avocado.
I love avocado. Cece and I are trying to grow an avocado tree. So we have
Wow.
we have the pit, and we put it in water, and so we'll see where that goes. So, all right, everybody, thank you for tuning in to Progressive HR Talks Live. I am here talking with Jay Abbasi from Jay Abbasi Consulting, and we're talking about mindfulness today. So if you have any questions for Jay, please throw them in the comments. We're going to start with some questions now that I put together for Jay to get the discussion rolling. And again, this is a conversation, so feel free to talk amongst yourselves in the live stream, in the comments, ask questions, throw in anything you want to talk about. So here we go. So I really want to know, and I think everybody really wants to know, is like your first line of your LinkedIn profile says mindfulness is not just for yogis. So what does that mean?
Sure. So the story behind that, I have to give the credit where credit is due, is that my girlfriend said it in response to some of the things I was talking about mindfulness, and how, this is something that applies to everybody. This is not just for people who are, on in caves or, meditating all day. And then she's like, yeah, mindfulness, it's not just for yogis. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. And I ended up putting that on the top of my LinkedIn profile. And it's for that reason, I think that there's a lot of misconception. I think that we're starting to see it be a little bit more mainstream. People are starting to come around to it. There's still a bit of a stigma behind it to suggest that, mindfulness means that you are calm and you're just at peace, and you're not driven or anything like that. But it's not true, because what we find is that the people who are so successful in today's world, in this fast-paced, crazy, ever-changing work environment, are finding ways to be more present and finding ways to be more mindful. So I put that as my the front of my profile, so I could introduce it in a way that gives people a little like, what does he mean by that? But ultimately, I want to get deeper to help people to see that this is something that can help everybody. It could change your life. It could transform your life and bring you a lot more contentment in your day-to-day.
I know that I started a practice of mindfulness a few years ago, and I started it in yoga class. So I could say that I am a yogi that does mindfulness. And a lot of it is about thinking about, like, if you're breathing into the uncomfortable, like letting yourself sit. This is a lot about what it's for me. Letting yourself sit in a kind of a presence of being a little bit uncomfortable and understanding, like looking into your body and seeing, like, where's the tension? Why is the tension there? What is this telling me? Am I starting to think about, do I want to come out of this pose? And why do I want to come out of this pose? And can I breathe through it and make it okay? And can I sit with it? So I love the video where at the end you try to do the lotus.
Oh, yeah, I'm not very flexible. It's not a very comfortable posture for me. But I make that joke to allude to what that tagline, right? Which is, you don't have to sit in the lotus position and, have the hands up and do that kind of thing. Like, I've never done that personally. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm not criticizing that. I mean, for some, that is a great gateway to get to be more present, and that's wonderful. But for those of us who haven't grown up with that kind of sitting posture and that kind of culture, it doesn't need to be that way. I sit in a chair, with a cushion or the pillow behind my back, and I just sit comfortably, and that's how I practice my meditation. And the term yogi is really one that suggests that this is someone who's dedicating their life to being more present and being more mindful, and meditation and yoga, and that's what they do from morning till evening. But in our crazy world where we are being pulled one way, pulled the other way, and we never give ourselves a little bit of time, it's the saddest thing in the world that we aren't making time for some self-care. And that's my mission, is to help people to see the importance of that and give them the tools so that they can give some time to themselves, make some time for themselves.
I think that's so very, very important, especially, we all don't make time for ourselves, and we need to do that more. And we need to think that, for me, it feels like selfish, and I want to let everybody know it's not selfish. And we have a comment from Michael Ray from Kentucky, and he said that this is making a difference in the world, and it is.
It's great to see you, Michael. Thank you for the kind words, my friend. Keep that smile, man. I love seeing Michael Ray every day on LinkedIn, smiling and sharing love and kindness. It warms my heart. It's good to see you on.
And he also says that we're looking gorgeous today. So thank you. I appreciate that.
But you were saying a moment ago, I appreciate the fact that you were saying it is perceived potentially as selfish, but it's actually the opposite. I think if we want to best serve others and be more selfless and more giving and more better with our children and our family and at work, and be more caring and compassionate, we need to take care of ourselves. That's why on the airplane, they tell you when the oxygen masks fall, you put it on yourself first before you put it on your child. We're doing the same thing here with a practice like mindfulness, self-care, yoga, things like that. It's so that you could be the best version of you to everyone around you who needs you.
I think that's very well said. So going to one of the questions that I had is that, if you're starting a practice of mindfulness, where can you start? Because we have just what you were talking about. We have start with self-care, start with meditation, start with being present. So where can we start? There's so many things to start with.
Yeah, we're in an age of an overflux of information. There's so much information out there, and it can get confusing. I encourage my clients to start with their breath. We breathe 20,000 times a day. How often are we paying attention to it? Right? We're usually just not thinking about it. It's a thing that's happening all the time. And it doesn't mean that you have to sit for 45 minutes the first time if you've never done this before and try to watch your breath and not let your mind go anywhere. Like that's only going to create more discouragement. I'm a big fan of Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I always go to that book because I think he really instilled in me this idea that you start small and you build yourself up when you want to develop a habit. So if you want to begin a practice, you set a timer for 2 minutes. Set a time for 2 minutes. Sit comfortably, be alert in your posture, be grounded where you're not swaying, you're just sitting there and you're just watching your breath. That's it. Watch your breathing for 2 minutes. Notice what happens with the mind. Because if you're lucky, you make it to 5 seconds without your mind wandering. Right? If you're lucky, you're already on you're doing pretty well if you get to 5 seconds. But what often happens is that the mind's going to wander, and just notice this. Notice how your mind wanders, and then bring your attention back to your breathing and continue to notice and watch your breathing in and out, in and out. And you're watching it, you're observing it. And then you keep bringing the mind back to the breath every time it wanders. Do this for 2 minutes. See what it's like. Don't have any crazy goals. Don't have any expectation. Go in with an intention that I'm curious. I'm curious about my breathing. I'm curious to see how this works. Have a little bit of playfulness in the process to where you're not judging yourself. And that's how I would encourage people to start. And then you do 2 minutes, and then you work to 5 minutes. And then you can go to 10 minutes and keep going until you can get to maybe 20 or 30 minutes a day. Because that's where you start to see true transformation and what we find in neuroscience, and the brain actually starts to create new neural pathways after weeks of weeks, not months, which is fascinating. It only takes weeks of practicing consistently for 30 minutes a day.
That's really amazing. I mean, just talking, you reminded me, I don't know if the audience saw that I just started to sit up more straighter and started to breathe. You did remind me to breathe. We forget about it, you know? And going back to what you said, it's something that we do all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's always available. It's accessible. That's why breathing is, I think, the best object of attention for mindfulness. And that's why it's been that way for thousands of years. You could always go with other things and, try to go with mantras or other things like that. If you're starting out, don't overcomplicate it. Go with the breath. It's there for you.
So then our big question, what a lot of people want to know is that how can we bring a practice of mindfulness into our work, our workspaces, and our workplaces? And I divided those because they are separate to me, but they're also congruent. And the fact is, like, our work is one thing, our workspace is one thing, and our workplace is another thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So how we bring it to our work is the faculty of mindfulness that I think fascinates me maybe the most. I mean, there's so many mental strengths that get developed, but the one that I talk about a lot is the space, and I call it the space because everything in our lives consists of stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl has this famous quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So how you bring this into the workplace is that as you've become, or as you practice your mindfulness, more and more, you're able to respond rather than react in the workplace. It gives you the ability to pause. I joke around all the time. It's kind of like, having this pause button remote control that you can just hit at any time that you want. It's a great tool to have, right? At work specifically, because you get an email, rather than react to the email and write something back out of emotion, you create that space to read the email and take a second to pause. That is mindfulness, is being aware of the present moment objectively and without judgment. Right? There's acceptance there of what's happening. And you take a step and you observe what you see and you observe how you're reacting. And then you respond mindfully. I'm using the example of an email, but this could be with colleagues. This could be with the pressures that you're starting to feel about a deadline that's approaching. All of this applies to our work. And so the things that you can do throughout the day, even during a work day, is it doesn't take long, right? We were just doing it a moment ago. Take 30 seconds in the middle of the day to observe your breathing. Do something that takes 5 minutes where you can get away from the work and go out for a walk. But when you go out for that walk, don't do so with your mind wandering about all the things that you have to do next. Go out for a quick 5-minute walk in the middle of the day where you have a little bit of a break, and allow that time to be a mindful space where you are observing the present moment. That's it. You have your phone away from you, right? If you have to carry it with you for safety, of course, it's one thing. But otherwise, you're not checking your phone and you are being mindful. And what this does for you is it creates this opportunity to reset, and you can come back to work recharged. And in the workplace, I mean, that's where I think there's a little bit more of there's great opportunity in the workplace. How I take that question is, how can we create the environment for mindfulness? Mm-hmm. And that's where companies need to look at their culture and determine how they can infuse mindfulness and self-care for their employees into the culture. And it's possible. It's being done all over the country. We're seeing it. And I think more and more companies need to adopt trainings as well as prioritization of mindfulness and self-care within the organization. Because otherwise, as much as you could be a mindful person, if you walk into an environment that is very difficult and very challenging, mm-hmm. It's very, very hard to stay mindful.
For me, and so I have two comments on that, is that I think that it could really, toxicity in the workplace, things that we do because of what you had said before about having reactions to toxicity or reactions to things that trigger us. There's so much productivity lost there. And we're being distracted. We're being distracted from our present goal. And this happened to me this morning. I was getting ready for our talk, and I looked in my email because I was looking to see if, maybe there was an email from you saying, hey, I'm going to be a little late, or I'm going to be a little early, or have a question. And I saw an email from somebody that triggered me. And of course I read it, and I thought to myself, like, why did I read this? Like, I'm recognizing that I shouldn't have read any other email other than Jay's if he would have sent me one. And I read this, and now it's triggering me. And now I'm thinking about responding to this email or reacting to this email. And the irritation that I felt, rather than thinking about my goal, which was making this a great talk. And so I stopped and I paused, just like you said, took a few breaths, and just basically said, it's not important, let it go. And so that, 5 minutes that it derailed me, I could have been doing something so much more important.
Well, I think you just provided us with an amazing example of how that's mindfulness in practice, what you just described. And the challenge is many times people don't even have the recognition that you had. You had the recognition. You were aware. You saw it happening, right? That's the slow motion. That's the pause button in action, right? And if we can do more of that, right, and be less reactive, think about the type of relationships that you can build and the type of what that can do for your ability to grow within an organization, and how much more effective that you can be, because it allows you to focus. Like you just said, this was most important to you. You knew that, right? The other thing was something that would have led you to be more reactive. If you were reactive and you got caught in that email and it then hindered this, which you felt was most important, this would be what suffers. And I think that this little subtle difference built over, hours and days and weeks and months for each person in an organization impacts the results of the organization. And what you said about distraction, we have a lot of research on this. What they found was that organizations or employees spend 77 minutes a day in a workplace distracted and not focusing on the work that is in front of them. That's a lot of time. In an 8-hour day, over an hour and 10 minutes is being used to be distracted, to watch online content, to watch, go on social media and all that kind of stuff. Why is that? Because either they're not engaged in their work, right? or they're using something to distract them from their work because they're feeling some difficult emotion and they want to numb with something else. So the solution of mindfulness would lead to increased results in productivity because you wouldn't have that much time being wasted on distraction.
And I look at that and I say, we're doing the calculations. That's over 5 hours a week. And we're already, we're talking about self-care. We could take those 5 hours that could be go to self-care. We could take our work hours, our work week, from a 40-hour work week to a 35-hour work week.
Exactly.
If we all, and can you just imagine? It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
Absolutely.
So, and Michael Ray says, "Love you, kids." We love you too.
We love you too, Michael.
So here's a good point to say that if you are tuning into Progressive HR Talks live now, go ahead and start a discussion with us in the comments. Go ahead and add in where you're from, where you are this morning. If you have any questions about mindfulness for Jay Abbasi from Jay Abbasi Consulting, we are talking about mindfulness in the workplace right now, or go ahead and just whatever you'd like to ask us. We're here. We'll take your comments and your questions. So we had a few people that couldn't join us today, but they'll be watching the replay that will be on Progressive's HR LinkedIn page. So Matthew right now this comes from Matthew Ley of Flip the Script Coaching and Consulting. He wants to know, how would you distinguish mindfulness, meditation, and focusing technique? We talked a little bit about that before, but he wanted to also know, are there places for each in the future of work? And could you kind of describe where we could find those places, what places those could be?
Absolutely. So to distinguish these three things, mindfulness is something you can do throughout the day. It's more of a way of being that allows you to be, or tells you to be present. So maintaining your awareness of the present moment without judgment, with acceptance, and doing so objectively. And so mindfulness is not always a formal sitting practice. We could be mindful in how we eat our lunch. We could be mindful in a conversation with somebody. We could be mindful in how we write an email. And so mindfulness can kind of be more of a switch that occurs throughout your day. Whereas meditation is more understood to be a formal practice. It's sitting down and observing the breath. That's the one we were talking about before. It's, saying a word through mantra meditation that is repeated, and you are observing the sounds of the word and observing yourself. Body scan meditation, open monitoring meditation. All these are different formal techniques where you are sitting. In some cases, there's walking meditation as well. But think of it more of as formal practice. And meditation has more of a history, with spirituality. And that's where some people get caught up. But now in today's world, there's a much more secular way to practice meditation. So meditation falls under mindfulness in the modern day understanding. And a focusing technique is not that different than meditation in itself. I would say focusing technique, and my understanding from what Matthew is asking, is to focus on an object with all of your attention. So there's concentration that's being worked on. And that is one way of which we meditate, right? So as I kind of described the breath earlier, if I am focusing my attention on my breathing, that's a focusing technique. I'm focusing. And when my mind gets distracted, I bring my focus back to it. That's where the real magic happens, and how we rewire our brains. And so all three are incredibly effective practices. And then the question of, are there places for each in the future of work? Absolutely. How they can apply, we talked about it a little bit a moment ago, is a culture of mindfulness is something that I think organizations can adopt. And if more companies had that type of belief that then made its way down to all the employees and all the managers, you would see a significant difference in people's happiness level. And we already have research on this. Aetna, Google, General Mills have all adopted mindfulness programs, and they see a significant improvement in employee stress level and employee productivity. Meditation could be something that is brought into workshops in the workplace, where employees are able to join in meditation practices. Obviously now maybe more via Zoom or via web conference, but when we have the ability to do this in person, it's always the most effective. And as I said before, focusing technique, in my opinion, falls very close into meditation. So I think all of that can be applied into the professional work environment, and that's something I'd love to see more of, and what I'm working towards, supporting organizations in this transition, especially following the tumultuous year of 2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another one of our listeners, our audience that couldn't be here today, she had another question for you. And I think this is a really good question. Does it help or hinder the movement that mindfulness is being adopted into the mainstream?
That's a great question. I hear the concern. Of it being adopted into the mainstream, and therefore people trying to just monetize it and make it more of a gimmick and teach it the wrong way, or offer or promise benefits that aren't true and things like that. But here's what I would say to that, Chris. I think that's the case for anything and everything as something becomes more popularized, especially in a society where we're very much at risk of messages being false and people promoting things in untrue ways. It's just the nature of our environment. So having said that, I think it only helps, because if mindfulness becomes more mainstream and more people are hearing of it, it only means that it's reaching more people. Now, does it mean it also reaches some people in ways that are untrue? Yeah, that might happen. But I think for what I believe the mission is of this movement, it is to reach more people, to have more people find the benefits of mindfulness. I would say I would go to any lengths to do that, as long as it's not truly harming anybody or abusing anyone or anything like that. I would go to almost any lengths. And if it means that we're going to have some falsity, some incorrect things here and there, I would hope that people in today's environment will do their work and do their research to find out what is credible, what is accurate, what is effective. And I mean, the difference is substantial as to how many people know what the word mindfulness means today as to 40 years ago. So I think it only helps that it's being adopted in the mainstream.
I think that's a great response. One of the things I was wondering as we were talking about that, actually not wondering, but wanted to highlight, is that you do have a LinkedIn Live yourself. Is that correct?
I do, yes. It's every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, the mindfulness movement. And we talk about different topics about mindfulness and how it applies to the workplace. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to highlight that because Chris asked about the mindfulness movement, and your LinkedIn Live is called Mindfulness Movement. So wanted to make that connection.
I appreciate it, Green. Thank you.
Yeah. So for those that are tuning in right now, this is Progressive HR Talks Live, and we are talking with Jay Abbasi of Jay Abbasi Consulting, and we're talking about mindfulness and the workplace and the future of work. Go ahead, throw in the comments where you're from, and if you have any questions for Jay or I, please let us know, and we'll just continue now. Keep going. So the next question I have is, and you touched on this earlier, but I still wanted to ask the question again. For those that are just tuning in now, is what is one of the most misunderstood things about mindfulness?
There are many misunderstandings, and rather than repeat, I'll say it a little differently than how I said it earlier. I think there's this belief that what mindfulness does is it makes you really calm, and it makes you relaxed, and then you aren't as driven. You aren't as action oriented. You aren't as motivated. So in other words, somebody once sent me a message a while ago, like, I don't want my people in my organization sitting around in a circle singing Kumbaya all day. I want them to work, right? I responded, of course, respectfully, but that's just not true. And we know it's not true for many reasons. One, the science doesn't align with that. We have brain scans that show the difference. We have brain scans that will help to see inside the brain before and after. And what we see is that the human mind doesn't, if anything, it improves its areas of focus. It improves its areas of learning, improves the area of memory. The prefrontal cortex gets expanded. The amygdala shrinks. So the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that does problem solving, the front area of the brain, and that is more responsible for cognitive functioning. Whereas the amygdala, the area of the brain that is responsible for triggering fight or flight for perceived threats, shrinks. So all of these things actually lead us to the result scientifically that someone is more effective, more productive, more focused, more driven, more motivated, because they're able to access the areas of the brain that lead to those results. But having said all that, because I can geek out on science clearly, but having said all that, experientially, for everyone who does this kind of practice, they don't see that you turn into this, calm, subtle, type of person. Sure, you are able to respond more effectively in a calmer manner, but you're able to tap into your full potential through the practice of mindfulness. That's why we see, people like Phil Jackson, the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, have all of his players practice mindfulness because he saw that it led them to be more focused. Michael Jordan practiced mindfulness and still does. Kobe Bryant before he passed as well, because these players were able to get into the zone more to be able to be more effective. And what we see in mindfulness, and one of the major benefits, is that it helps us to see through the stories. And the stories we're telling ourselves, I think the stories we tell ourselves are what lead us down the paths of being unproductive. When we tell ourselves all these, give this subjective meaning to things, and mindfulness offers us the opposite, to see objective reality and to take action with a bit more clarity.
Can you explain a little bit more about the stories? I learned about stories probably, I would say, a year and a half ago. I'll be very candid and say that my husband and I were going through some rough patches in our marriage. And we decided that although there is a stigma to it, we wanted to go to marriage counseling. And our counselor, who we love, we don't see her anymore because I think we're doing really, really well. We are doing really well, I think. I know we're doing well. But we talk about stories a lot. And so I learned about stories and it's taken me over a year to kind of like still, to understand or to be aware of those stories. So I'd like you to tell a little bit the audience, like, what is a story and how can we be aware of a story and how can we move through a story?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Green. I think we're all living in our own subjective reality. So what I mean by that is everything that we are experiencing is through our perception, right? So something happens, I see it, I hear it, I experience it, I then perceive it, and then I interpret it in my mind. And that interpretation oftentimes is filtered through filtered into a story. And that story could potentially put me in the role of victim, which is what we do very often, and place judgments on everybody else, judging what they did, trying to control situations that we can't control, and then getting frustrated that we can't. And it creates all this resistance. And so when we are identified with these stories and we identify with the story that's being told in the mind, and we believe it with all our certainty that we believe it, it could lead to some problems with relationship, problems with work, and even with ourselves. It can create a lot of self-loathing in the stories that we tell. So how do we get around this? Well, the first step, in the whole practice of mindfulness is to become aware of the story. We need to recognize the story that's there. So in other words, one way I could paint this picture is, if another person were to experience what I'm experiencing, would they have the exact same story in their mind? And the answer is most likely no. It's your own conditioning from childhood, everything that you've been programmed inside of you to this point that has led the story to be told as it's being told in your mind. And when you can recognize that and become aware of it, you can look into it. You explained it really well before with yoga and how you do that with your body. Well, you do the same thing with the story, right? You said before, when you sit, it's like, where's the discomfort? Where's the pain? Why is it there? Can I sit with it? Can I feel it? Can I notice it? We do exactly the same process with the story. What is this story that I'm telling myself? And then do I know it to be factually true? It's one of my favorite questions. Do I know this to be factually true? And the answer is probably no. And then what I advise my clients to do is to recognize that the story is something that you're looking at and you are observing it. You're the subject, and then there's the object of the story. And when you can do that, you can detach from it, see it as an object, just like you see the object of your own breathing. You see the object of this story that you're telling yourself, and you can learn to let go of it, right? And I think in terms of relationship, oftentimes what helps, and it sounds like you did a great work with your counselor, is to communicate the stories that are being told in a way where you're not doing so through all of your emotion, fueled by all of your emotion, but to share, hey, this is the story that's going on. This is what I'm perceiving right now. Talking through it a lot of the time helps to release that story and to not cling to it so deeply.
And we tell stories to ourselves, and then we tell stories about other people as well, which leads into our judgment of other people. And I like to say that, when you stop judging yourself, you can stop judging other people, because you have more empathy for yourself and you have empathy for other people. One of those examples is back when in March, when COVID hit and only essential businesses were open and food was flying off the shelves. I went into my parents' grocery store to help stock as a volunteer. And I was stocking in an aisle, and a woman came through and she had like a baby with her. And one of the other stockers said, "Oh my God, that woman, she's such a bad mom. She has a kid with her. Who would bring a kid into a grocery store, at its pack peak during COVID?" And I looked at her and I said, "But you don't know, you're telling a story about her.
Right.
You don't know her circumstance. You don't know if this is the absolute only time that she can come in, and she doesn't have anybody else that can care for her." And I said, rather than judging her, you should be part of the solution and go up to her and say, "I see you have a child. I work here. Can I help you get a bunch of groceries on your list so you can leave quicker, so you don't have to sit here and expose your child to this?"
That's a great example. Yeah. I
And
mean, wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, so it's going back to like, what stories do we tell ourselves? We can empathize with other people. Can we empathize and not judge ourselves? So, I mean, asking the audience, does anybody have like a story that they want to share that they maybe tell themselves, that they've kind of worked through, or that Jay and I can kind of help you maybe work through right now? So go ahead and put that in the comments if you'd like to. Anybody who wants to share. So I've been having like an absolutely wonderful time, and I just looked up at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, we only have like maybe 15 minutes left.
No, it's been flying. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. So if anybody has any questions for Jay, please throw those in the comments. We got the last 15 minutes here. I personally think everybody is just so mesmerized with our conversation. They don't want to take the time to stop and like put comments in. So I'm going to look through these questions here. Oh, here's an interesting one. What services do you offer as part of the Jay Abbasi Consulting? I think this is really important for everybody. The variety of services that you offer.
Absolutely. So we do a number of different things. One is we do one-on-one coaching for professionals who are feeling overworked, overwhelmed, overstressed, and are looking for ways to be more resilient, to be productive while being content. I know I've had that experience of my life where I was working over 75 hours a week, and it was driving me crazy, and I didn't know how to balance. I didn't know how to find my happiness while still being productive. And it took me years to figure out how to do that. And so we offer that through one-on-one coaching, and soon to be offering that through a group coaching course as well. So those are two different services we offer. And also for organizations that are looking for workshops, whether that's through a shorter workshop to introduce some ideas into the organization, or more extended workshops to support an organization looking to bring mindfulness to the workplace. We offer that as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I know we covered this a little bit, but I wanted to bring it back to how we can use mindfulness to evolve the future of work.
To evolve the future of work.
Yes. So what my future of work, and this is what I consider the future of work, is where our purpose is our work and purpose, passion melds into one, where we're flexible. We don't have to, if we can't work a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job, that's available to us to work whenever we want to work, and to do it in a way that that supports our passion, supports our purpose, and that we are all unique, resourceful humans, and there's a job or a position that's meant for every single person on this planet out there. It's just really, can we cut through the tension? Can we cut through the excuse my language, but CRAP to make it where we're all thriving as resourceful humans?
Yeah. What came to mind, because you used the word evolve, is I'm just imagining a future of work where we develop the workplace so that it aligns with human contentment, rather than it being a workplace that is focused all on the results, and then we try to fit the human being into it. Right. And so with that, it would mean that we have a workplace where there is more autonomy, more empowerment, and it is centered around ensuring people are content, people are thriving. And I like the word purpose. They're living their purpose. And so it's a challenging thing, and there's probably a much bigger conversation in regards to the way in which, capitalism works, and how that impacts these kind of conversations, because ultimately in this type of society, it becomes hard. The structure itself provides, more success to those that beat everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
At any cost. And so if you were to ask me, in terms of at a macro level, I think there needs to be some consideration of the entire system and how that all works. I don't have all the answers personally, but I believe that there's more of this kind of inside out approach of thinking through what makes people content, what ensures human contentment, and then developing the workplace around that versus the other way around.
Yes. So we can see it happening. We, especially with the movement that we're going through right now, is that I don't remember who said it. It might have been you that said that it was you, resilience. So how COVID highlighted how we need to be more resilient, or highlighted the issues that we can have if we don't have a practice of self-care.
Right.
But in the reality is, and I think you even said this, that in the reality that, these problems were always there. These issues were always there. It's just they're highlighted now. and building. And it's not just resilience, because, there are critics that say that, why are you going to tell somebody to build resilience? Because why are you going to tell somebody that they're just going to fail all the time? They need to get used to it.
Yeah, no, I think of resilience more as being resilient to the circumstances, to the challenges. I mean, I worked at Tesla for years, and every day there was something new, right? There was, a new tweet from Elon that said we're doing something different, or an email comes through and it's okay, change course, and everything you were working on, we're going to leave that to the side and do something else. And to be able to do that and to pivot and to still be effective requires resilience. And I'd say I built up much of my resilience through my experience at a workplace like Tesla, and then paired well with my mindfulness practice. So, I mean, in the end, Karina, the way I see this, and, it's so easy to get caught up in the company and the organization and results and all that. But if you zoom out, what's the point of everything? We have this short life that we're living, all of us, and we're all doing it together, right? Why are we focusing more on getting these results and these numbers in the stock market and all this stuff, and leaving human well-being not as the top priority? It's crazy. It should always be the top priority, because we are the ones doing all of this work. So in the end, we end up doing it to ourselves. Why would we do this to ourselves, where we're putting ourselves second?
Exactly. And we're not throwaway resources. We are
Right.
human resources.
Right.
Yes.
And we're the most important resource.
Exactly. And our children are important resources, and we need to spend more time with them to help them through this time. I replied to one of your LinkedIn posts the other day. And by the way, everyone, Jay's LinkedIn posts, you should follow Jay. He gives you things to think about each day. And I just love what you put the other day in your post. And I'm going to read it, is that, if we fully accepted the present moment as if you designed it. So fully accepting this moment, the present, as you yourself designed it. And I answered that, yes, I designed this moment because I was eating grapes with my daughter, and we were working on her homework. I didn't know that I designed it, but yes, I designed this. But can you tell me a little bit more about what you meant by that post, and how can people be present and design the moment that they're living?
Yeah, I remember your comment, and I remember the big smile on my face reading it, because it warmed my heart what you said. And yeah, I think you alluded to this before, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because it brought me back to something that you said, was not judging oneself being a goal, right? To not judge. And when we think about accepting the present moment as if we designed it, what that means is to not judge what's happening in a way that creates the resistance within us, because that's what ultimately happens. If we accepted the present moment as it is, fully, as if we designed it, we aren't judging it, we aren't trying to control it, we aren't pushing away from it. All the resistance is gone. And that's where real contentment lies. And, there are many great teachers who have brought this to our attention. Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, and many of these great teachers. And what I think we're starting to see is that more and more, this being going beyond just the spiritual realm and the spiritual place, to more of a practical, this applies to our day-to-day, this applies to our work life, this applies to the professional work environment. So if we could all fully accept the present moment as it is, I mean, we would live in a very different world. It would be a world full of compassion, full of kindness, and we would, I think, be much more effective in the work that we did, because we wouldn't be at each other's necks, at each other's throats. Everybody would be able to get along better, and therefore we would get better results.
Yeah, and we wouldn't focus our attention on judging others and judging ourselves. We'd just focus on being empathetic with them, and just doing what it is that makes us who we are and who we're unique. Speaking about being in the present moment, Jasmeet just tuned in. He says, got late. I was late for this wonderful conversation. Power to both of you. So I want to say, Jasmeet, you're not late. You designed this moment. This is where you were meant to come in.
Right, you are now, and now is the only time that we have. So you came on time.
Yes, exactly. And so Jasmeet is joining us from India. So, and then he also had made a comment about what we were discussing just a few minutes ago. Is that human is not a resource; it's a perspective.
Or maybe that's a perspective to consider. Humans are not a resource. I understand that perspective, and it makes sense that we should think of ourselves as more than just a resource. So it's a good definitely a great perspective to have. I know where you're coming from, Jasmeet.
And I always say we're all human. We're all resourceful.
Right. We are resourceful. We are not resources. Mm-hmm. I think it's maybe what Jasmeet was referring to.
Yes. Jasmeet and I go back when COVID started. So, so in the last few minutes that we have, I want to let everybody know that you can follow Jay Abbasi on LinkedIn, or you can email Jay at jayabbasi.me. And his website is also jayabbasi.me. So again, follow Jay on LinkedIn. Jay Abbasi Consulting is also on LinkedIn. And just to remind everybody that Jay does have a LinkedIn Live, which is on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, good. My memory is.
No, you're good. You're very good.
So if you have any questions, if you're looking for one-on-one coaching, if you just want to start a practice of mindfulness, he's the man. He's your man.
I appreciate it, Corrine. Thank you.
And you can follow me, Corrine Woodman-Hollebeck, and Progressive HR on LinkedIn. Jay and I are on LinkedIn almost every day. Not together, but we do have conversations with each other.
Yes.
So if you would like more information on the future of work, more information on mindfulness, and also if you were looking to get more information on future Progressive HR talks, please follow us on Progressive HR. And lastly, before we close out, I wanted to let you know that our next episode is 10:15, which is Thursday. I'm just going to check my calendar, make sure that I got that right. So yes, I did. Good on me. So this is a Progressive HR Talks Live. This is our special episode, which is occurring on Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central Time. Our normal time is Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central Time. And our next episode is with Elizabeth Payne. We're going to be talking about the subconscious mind and the future of work. So we have lots of interesting Progressive HR Talks Live coming up with Nick Anton, Mr. Timspiration, Nick Murtry, with Kristen Strunk, and with many more. So please go ahead, and I will hopefully get all of our upcoming episodes in the Progressive HR page put in today, so you can check out all of our events. And then in the last minute or so we have of our talk, Jay, what is your mindfulness challenge for everybody? What is one thing they can do today as a mindfulness challenge?
My challenge would be right after this call, at some point today, take 2 minutes to observe your breathing. Very simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it. Just take time to observe the flow of air going in and out of your nose or mouth. Notice what it feels like. Notice the speed. Notice the temperature. Observe it. Watch it for 2 minutes and see how it feels.
Thanks, Jay. And thank you so much to everybody tuning in today. I am so appreciative of taking your time to talk with Jay and I. Have a very, 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 very wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kareen.
Thanks, Jay.